Welcome to Streaming with Two Dudes, a podcast about all things streaming. Each episode, we break down some of the best series, songs, movies, and shows. I'm one dude, Parker.
Dude number two, Jeff.
And dudes, this month our theme is redudes and reboots. And this episode, we are talking about the 2022 Chippendales Rescue Ranger. But first, Jeff, what else have you been streaming?
Again, I wasn't surprised by this question. Not sure why.
Like it's the first thing I ask every week. it's like oh,
and it's always the one question I never prepare myself for. Which, not that it would help preparing, because it's another one of those weeks where I didn't stream anything else that I'm aware of. It's just that phase of life for me.
I understand. I get that. It's busy time.
I streamed the one movie I was required to, but gosh, there's so much other stuff I'm wanting to watch. I keep meaning to start the show Wednesday. I really want to watch that, and just hadn't gotten around to it. So I'm just going to pass it on to you, who probably does have something to share as far as something else you're streaming.
Yeah, actually, there's this movie that I've been wanting to watch called The Menu, and I finally sat down and watched it this week, and the storyline was totally different than what I was expecting. The vibe was exactly what I was expecting. So, take that with what you will, but it was super, super fun. It's not really a horror film. I guess it would be like suspense thriller, almost like a black comedy, but I really enjoyed it. It's called The Menu. I think it's on HBO Max. So if you are curious about that, it's a good place to check that out. That is what I've been streaming. But Jeff, this movie, I know you always say like sometimes the newer films are harder to find tidbits on, but I feel like if you dug deep enough, you probably could find some pretty juicy things. Jeff, what can you tell me about Rescue Rangers, this film that we watched this week?
So I went into it not knowing exactly what I would find, but I wouldn't say I found a vast amount, but I felt like what I did find was interesting. Yeah. Hopefully some things maybe you'll be like, wow, I would have never thought that, or that's pretty cool. But anyway, first thing I'll do is maybe just a couple of things on the original Chippendale series, since this movie kind of plays real heavily off the original.
Yeah, this is actually the first film that we've actually done that's actually a reboot. Everything else we've done has been like a remake. So this is the first one that's actually the technical reboot that we actually did. The only one we did this month. So
yep. So believe it or not, Chip and Dale were not originally part of the series.
Really?
Not part of the plan. It was some Kit, or some character named Kit. It was just a solo guy, and Michael Eisner, I think, CEO of Disney at the time, said, "I love the concept. Just me or none of the other creative, people were not into the main character."
Yeah.
So they decided to bring in good old solid, reliable Chip and Dale, who had been featured, a number of things prior to that. So Chip and Dale were actually a very late addition to the series, which is unusual since they were the main characters. Usually, it doesn't work that way. Another interesting tidbit was Rescue Rangers and DuckTales were the first American cartoons to ever air in the then Soviet Union, post-Cold War. So that's a couple things on the original series. As far as the cast, I mean, a lot of big names in this. You got Will Arnett and Andy Samberg, a couple of heavy hitters doing Chip and Dale. You had some others like Eric Bana. Anybody who watches movies or turns on their TV obviously recognized the voice of Seth Rogen. That was very hard to miss.
Actually, I think I'm gonna stop you just real quick. I think Will Arnett does the lieutenant, or is it or Captain Putty. I think John Mulaney does the.
You are right.
Yeah,
I got that totally backwards. So yeah,
no, yeah,
Mulaney and Andy.
Yeah, I just love both of those guys. So I when you said that, when I was like, I gotta stop him real quick before he gets too far into that, because that might be the first emails we started getting was corrections on that.
hey, I'm just trying to drive up, participation. It's all part of the test, all part of the test. Uh, so, of course, people probably notice a lot of similarities to Roger Rabbit as
Yeah.
far as mixing, animation with, real life characters. And, even this one used styles even from different animation eras, such as claymation,
Hmm.
2D animation, paper cutouts, puppetry,
Yeah.
CGI. I mean, they pretty much used every technology that's ever been used in animation.
Yeah, there was
Uh,
even a newscaster that was like printed in like that 3D style of animation from like the 70s and 80s where it has like the different color, I don't know what, like, you know what I mean, like the offset from each other.
yeah.
So yeah, that was really cool.
Uh, One thing that I found interesting that I would have never guessed, but in the movie they reference Double O Duck,
Uh-huh.
which played a part of the story, which is kind of what led to almost the breakup of Chippendale. But that was actually an idea that Disney was going to go with, but then they found out they couldn't use Double O Duck.
Double O Dale.
So is that what it is? Double O
Yeah,
Dale or Double O
the
Duck?
the
Maybe
are
they
you talking about?
couldn't. Maybe they couldn't use Double O Dale because of maybe there was something called Double O Duck or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, they ended up having to use Darkwing Duck.
Hmm.
So originally it was going to be Double O.
Oh,
Um,
gotcha.
so they kind of had a revert course there. So it's funny how they took real life scenarios and actually incorporated them into the actual story. Another one where they may have done that, or it could have been coincidence. You can kind of make up your own mind. But as we notice, the main villain in this movie is Peter Pan,
Mhm.
otherwise known as Sweet Pete in this one. But in real life, um, after Pete aged out of his own, I'm sorry, this is part of the movie. His character aged out of his own acting career. He kidnapped other tunes and forced them to make, bootleg movies. But
Yeah.
the real life acting career of Bobby Driscoll, who was the voice behind Disney's original Peter Pan 1953, he was hired by Walt Disney as a child actor for Song of the South,
Hmm.
and he was contracted for several films following that. However, when he hit puberty, his voice didn't match the roles that he was originally offered. And apparently his career and personal life went downhill from there.
Yeah.
Um, as, Speaking of the villain,
Which I think a lot of people like I remember when this film came out, that was like the one real thing that people had like complained about was that they felt like, the portrayal of Peter Pan's character was too closely related to Bobby Driscoll's actual life, which was a little, pretty sad, and it was kind of the way like, it was like Disney's kind of like making fun of the way somebody his life turned after the way that they treated him, which was kind of negative. But um, not to get too dark on that, but you can
oh
go
yeah.
go ahead with what you're what you're saying.
Well, speaking of the villain, originally the main villain in this movie was going to be someone else. I will give you three guesses, and we'll see if any of your guesses get anywhere near the ballpark.
Captain Hook.
Nope.
The Cheshire Cat.
Nope.
Mickey Mouse.
Nope.
All right.
All right. So brace yourself. Are you sitting down?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're looking at me.
I just, camera angles, they could be deceptive. Uh, it was going to be the adult version of Charlie Brown from the Peanut
Oh,
series.
that would have been good. That would have been good
I
too.
thought I thought the same thing. I was like, that would, but they couldn't get all the rights. I think they
Yeah.
had the rights to the distribution of the 2015, but they didn't have the rights to pull off what they were wanting to. So they had to
Uh,
settle for Peter Pan. But most viewers will probably realize that this movie had a ton of cameos and Easter eggs.
oh yeah.
I gave up trying to find them all. I just
Yeah.
saw them everywhere, and I was just like, I don't. My brain can't process all that. I'm just watching the movie, but
Hmm.
you did get to see characters such as Darkwing Duck, E.T., Skeletor, Just tons of classic characters. Um,
Not even just classic ones, like even ones that are in like current animation. Like I saw like South Park characters, I
oh
saw
yeah,
Simpsons characters, I think I saw Butthead. Yeah, Butthead was on like an advertisement as like a senator. I
yeah,
saw that one at one point. So yeah, like even like it wasn't even just like traditional like I guess children's animation. Like they even had like some more adult animation thrown in there too, which was really, really cool.
yeah. And probably the coolest thing I thought was, I'm sure you picked up on it, but it was a scene in which Seth Rogen reprised three of his previous roles as well as the
Oh
current
yeah,
one in
yeah,
this
yeah.
movie.
Him
Uh,
kind of poking fun at his own laugh.
yeah, so yeah, it was I guess what Pumbaa, Bob, and
Hmm.
Mantis as they were attacking the other character, the Warrior King. So
Yeah,
it was kind of neat how they we've had other shows and movies where we were like, we like that they're not afraid to poke fun at themselves, and this was
yeah,
definitely one of them that they did a good job in that area.
yeah, for sure. I mean, like this movie is just nothing but like self-referential. I mean, even the fact that you said that this movie's like, Roger Rabbit, and they even have a scene at the beginning, with Roger Rabbit, like which was
Yeah.
really cool. Like, I don't know, and I don't know. I kind of think of this movie as like a spiritual like sequel to Roger Rabbit, I guess, in a way. Um, because it kind of takes place, I guess, in the same kind of like world that Roger Rabbit does. So that's pretty cool.
And I guess one character I struggle with was Jimmy the polar bear,
Hmm.
because it was the exact opposite of how the Coca-Cola polar bears have always been
Yeah.
portrayed for all these years.
Yeah.
And he's like so mean in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I kind of like that too, though, which is also like Peter Pan, like they're both just these probably like, I guess, disenfranchised, like once famous people that are like kind of been thrown to the side. Because I haven't seen like I mean, you see the same like Coca-Cola commercials that you see every year, but I haven't seen like a new one. I don't think in decades. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So maybe that's why he's a little perturbed. He couldn't get any work after Golden Compass
Yeah.
or Lost. Um. So yeah. Yeah, man. I'm going like. Okay, so this one's gonna be. I feel like this one's gonna be hard to talk about and go in order because there's really like I don't know 'cause the way this one worked, it just kind of there's a lot of action scenes. So like it was like not a lot actually happened. So I'm kind of glad that we had a little bit more to talk about with this one than we normally do because I was like, oh, this is gonna go quick. But um I'm gonna try to get into it. So let's see if I can do this. This is the part where I try to remember as much of the plot as possible without any notes or anything like that. And at the end, Jeff is going to rate me on a grading scale like I was in school from A plus being the highest to an F minus being the lowest. And as people that have listened to this or know me are pretty aware that, my memory is not the best always. So sometimes this can get kind of interesting. So here we go. We
Is
start.
is F minus the thing or
I mean, well, let's like, yeah, because you got like your F and then your F minus. Like you wouldn't get an F plus because there's not like anything good about an F, but like
I
you get an
thought
F and then we get an F minus. Like, whoa, bro, like you really fucked up negatively.
I mean, I just thought an F was an F. It means you failed. So like F minus means
Yeah,
like
that's in
I
like
guess.
this 0 to like 40 range. I feel
Wow.
like
Okay.
0 to 40 range of like percentage. Which I don't know. I don't know. The grading scale is a lot different than whenever I was in school now.
Oh
So
yeah,
I
it's
mean, like they
changed.
always change. They always change that up. I don't know. It's
They,
weird.
they probably don't do Fs no more. It just goes A through C. You
Yeah.
know.
They just pass. They just do a pass fail.
0 through 33 is a C, 34 through 66, and so on. So, oh well.
Sometimes it's just, yeah. Some ways they are tougher, and some ways it's yeah, like I don't know. It was like the whenever I remember being in like whenever I was in school, it was like the sliver to get like an A was like so small, and D was so small, but like B and C was like such a wide variety, and then like F was like pretty much everything below like a 60%. um, which is just crazy because I feel like as long as you get more than half, like that should be passing, right?
You would
Um,
think.
right. But I think that's kind of like where they're actually more leaning towards. But anyways, we're not here to talk about the grading scales in the school systems. Um, that's another podcast for another day. Um,
Next week, Common Core math.
so so we start out in 1985. We see Dale getting off the school bus with a little open narration, kind of telling us what's going on. He's having trouble fitting in on the first day. That's he gets uh when he gets met up by Chip. They hit it off. They become best friends. They kind of find out that they have a you know good sense of humor together, and they form this little comedy duo that gets all the laughs and stuff at the talent shows in high school. So they decide to take their act to Hollywood, and they get a few minor roles. They get a background spot in an episode of Full House, and then they finally get their own show called Chippendale's Rescue Rangers, where it runs for I think like 3 seasons, where they get super popular, and Dale decides that he wants to have his own spinoff show, uh which causes the original Rescue Rangers to be canceled, and the show that Dale goes to start also gets canceled after the pilot. So they are all out of acting at this point, and we catch up with Dale in current day. He's pretty much doing the convention scene. We see him with Ugly Sonic, and uh, we see our boy from last week, Baloo.
Blue.
He's got a lot of attention now that he's got this CGI work done, which is also the same thing that Dale has done. Uh, where the CGI, he's kind of like updating their 2D model into a 3D model. Um, so I don't know if you know anything. Do you know anything about the Ugly Sonic? Were you familiar with what that character was from and like the whole
Actually,
thing about that?
I was not.
Okay, so when the Sonic the Hedgehog movie was announced, they released like images of what Sonic was going to look like, and everybody was like revolted about what like on the internet they were like, no, this is not like what's up with his teeth, his eyes are too small, he doesn't look like Sonic at all, like what's going on. And if you look up the current what Sonic looks like currently, that's what they changed it to. And they pretty much like put the movie off for like 6 more months or something like that, and changed the whole entire thing of Sonic. And everybody which was much more well received. And a lot of people, like I think that they did that on purpose just to kind of stir up controversy and like people talking about it. And then when they changed it, it caused a lot more people to go and see it. Uh, but I don't know. I don't know about that part, but that's where the whole thing with the teeth comes in, and why he's called Ugly Sonic, because that was the whole thing about that.
Oh, that's pretty
Which
cool. So that's just, I guess, another example where they actually incorporated real life
mhm.
events into the movie. Because
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like it's I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Is like this film was it's pretty great in the way they did a lot of that. Like it put it into a real life scenario, which was great.
now
Um,
there's what, two Sonic movies?
there is now. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, I've actually heard a lot of good things, but I mean, I've never seen either one. But
I saw the first one, and I watched that one in theaters, and I've seen it since then, and it was pretty fun. But I haven't watched the second one, even though I did enjoy the first one. It was fun, and I'm a pretty big Sonic fan. I grew up with the video games, so yeah, I need to sit down and watch the second one. Maybe I'll do that sometime this week, and maybe that'll be something I talk about next week. But um, Dale's running running the convention circuit. He's trying to, get back popular. We catch up with Chip. He is a life insurance salesman. He's got a, little house with a dog named Millie, and they both get a phone call from their old pal Monterey Jack. He's in a little bit of trouble. He is they go over to his house. They are oh, Monterey Jack is he owes some money to this guy named Sweet Pete, and for some cheese that he loves, and uh you know they they leave Monterey Jack and Chippendale, kind of disagreeing. They're kind of arguing. Chip's still not cool with Dale for the way he left the show. They're still not, the friends that they once were. And then they get a phone call later on that night from the police saying that Monterey Jack is missing. They go and find out, pretty much that he has been kidnapped from Sweet Pete. That's where we get to meet this super fan, Ellie. She was a big fan of she's one of the detectives working on the case. She is a big fan of the Chippendales Rescue Rangers show from, their original run, and it's pretty much what caused her to be a detective. Excuse me. And we also meet the captain. Well, I said his name earlier. What was it? Do you remember?
Ooh.
The claymation guy? I can't remember. All right. Well, we meet the captain of the detectives, and um, he's made a claymation out of clay, and uh, they have their own theories about what's going on. So Chip and Dale do their own little bit of investigating. They go to find out where um Monterey Jack has been getting his cheese, and they go to Main Street where they find all the some of the shady dealings that go on, and that's where we see a lot more of the characters from the background and stuff. We get a lot of cameos here, and they go into this Muppets little cave where he goes to get them some quote unquote cheese, and he's basically onto them. So that's when he finds out that they're actors. So he takes them to Sweet Pete, where we find out who he is right here, and he is an aged up Peter Pan who is upset with everything, and we find out that he is the one behind the bootleg kidnappings that have been going on. That we've been kind of getting snippets of and stuff with little news clips in the background, and uh, so he is going to try to take them. They escape through the toilet and through the sewer system. They report all of this to Ellie, and they are on the hunt for to get some information on uh, Sweet Pete's location and all of where he's doing all of his stuff. So they decide to get his step counter. That's right, right? His step tracker. And so they break into this little sweat lodge using or a spa. I don't know why I said sweat lodge. They break into like this day spa, and uh that's where they get the tracker. We get, a little rap scene right here from Chippendale, which was pretty funny. And they get the tracker successfully, get out of there, find out where the warehouse that Sweet Pete has been doing his transforming of the people to be able to make the bootleg movies. And they go, and that's when Chip gets a um, a Snoopy ear, and then they start to suspect that Ellie has been letting everybody know that Ellie is working for Sweet Pete. So they confront her. No, they don't tell her about it, and they go to um What happened here? Snap. Okay, so question mark on this part, but then they end up at uh being they end up finding out that the captain is actually the one that is working for Sweet Pete, and they get into a fight with Sweet Pete, basically take over everything with the help of Gidget and her husband Zipper, who are from the show, and they save the day and destroy Sweet Pete, who has been transformed into an amalgamation of a bunch of characters. Pretty much ends up on a deck. Chip and Dale both use their knowledge from the series and capture him using the Tweety birds for that we had seen from the cartoon at the beginning, and save the day and release all of the um, kidnapped animated characters that have been used for bootlegs, and the end. And we get a post-credit scene from Darkwing Duck, which I love Darkwing Duck too. So the end.
The end.
The end. So what do I get on that one?
So I'm feeling generous. You started off strong. So I'm still gonna give you a B minus,
Okay.
which in today's time is like an A in our time. So
No, it's not actually. I think it would be like a C in our time.
oh well.
Um, so all right, man, I appreciate that. That feels fair. That feels fair because I definitely am blocking out like this little section and that one little section I just cannot remember. But thanks, man. So Jeff, what did you think about this film? Let's hear what you thought about this. What ranking? I guess it's your week to pick what what what's the ranking system on this one?
Hmm. Wow, there should be so many good ones that come to mind. But let's say out of 5 ugly Sonics.
All right.
All right, so I think there's definitely a lot of good things about this film. We've kind of hit on some of them before. Uh, just really big fan of how they incorporate so much real life into
Mhm.
the movie. So it's you don't see that a whole lot with like animation type stuff, not of this type anyway. But I mean, even like playing off the real fact that the show got canceled,
Mhm.
30 years ago. So I mean, they do a a reboot, recontinuation of real events.
Yeah.
So I mean, you actually feel for the characters, and kind of feel the emotions they're going through. Just kind of all the cameos and Easter eggs we mentioned was really cool. So there's definitely a lot of things that I like that they did with it. Just the mixture of all the different technologies was really cool. So to me, there was definitely a lot of things that went well and that they did right. For me personally, fair or unfair, when I'm a fan of animation movies, but when I watch another animation movie, I tend to judge it against some of the animation movies I like a whole lot, whether it's like Lion King, Toy Story, even one like Moana. Just probably ones that are probably considered more of the classics.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to judge it against, just from like an entertainment or how much I enjoyed it. Um, so when I do that, it scores pretty low, just in my opinion. But I feel like I add a little bit when I take into account all the positive things I just mentioned. So having said all that, I ultimately land on um, 3 ugly Sonics out of 5.
All right.
So, definitely a solid movie. Um, it's not one I'll probably watch again. I felt like I watched it. I'm good. Um, interested to hear your take because I won't have the connection because I didn't watch the original show. I was kind of already at the age where, I wasn't watching the after school
Yeah.
Disney stuff. So to me, no connection. I mean, of course, I was familiar with the Rescue Rangers and I heard about them and knew about them, blah blah blah, but wasn't really a fan. Wasn't really watching the show. So I'm sure those that had some kind of a deeper connection to it probably appreciated a lot of the stuff a lot more than I would have. Anyway, so I'm interested to hear your take on it.
Okay, so I mean, you're right. I do have this connection to it, and this is actually one of those ones that I feel like is. I mean, for me, I don't know about other people out there. Was actually kind of perfect to kind of have this kind of like a reboot done to it because I definitely loved the show. I remember watching this. I remember watching Tailspin, Darkwing Duck. I remember watching, the Gummy Bears show, all of those things like after school, on TV. So like they were a big part of my childhood, but I haven't watched any of those. Those are not shows that I've really, gone back and watched. So I can remember like the theme songs to all of these shows, but as far as like, remembering like specific episodes, I couldn't tell you anything about them. So I do have that connection, but as far as like, being close enough to them to be like, oh, I'm gonna really judge them on how they do this. Um, I didn't really have that. So, I kind of got to have fun with this film, which was great because I did. Um, and I did, you're right. Like I'm kind of the opposite with you though. Like this is not the first time I've watched this. I watched this movie like the day it came out. I watched this movie probably 3 or 4 times since then, and I love watching, for everything in the background, and I catch something every time I watch it, so it's kind of always something fun for me to kind of throw on. It's kind of like a newer movie and a lot of newer movies don't do that for me, like, where it's like, "Oh, I can throw it on," and it's kind of like not really like a comfort movie, but just as a movie to be like, "Oh, I'm gonna throw this on to kind of halfway pay attention to," but also, when I wanna look into it and see my favorite parts come on the screen like I do. Um, so I do think I'll probably rewatch this film. But, I'm judging this based on, like, like you said, like, how well or how much I wanna rewatch it, but I'm kind of judging it on the Roger Rabbit scale, like, Roger Who Framed Roger Rabbit is, like, one of my favorite movies. I've loved that movie since I was a kid. It holds up even better as an adult. Uh, and, like, like I said, like, this is a very much a spiritual, like, sequel to that, not only in the fact that they combine both animated, characters into a live action, but, the original Who Framed Roger Rabbit was a detective, basically like a noir, a detective noir, and this one is, you know, uh another detective film, a detective mystery, and it's more of an action than Roger Rabbit, but, you know, I love it. But Who Framed Roger Rabbit's a classic. It was groundbreaking the way they did it. Uh, so this was just, it's not quite as good as Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but I do think that this holds up, pretty well to that. So I'm gonna give this a solid 4. Solid 4 Ugly Sonics because, like I said, I've rewatched this several times and I haven't really lost any enjoyment in watching it. I still enjoy the parts that I enjoy. Um, there's not too many parts that I have a problem with. Um, so yeah, I gotta give it 4 Ugly Sonics, which gives us an average of 3.5 Ugly Sonics. So still pretty fair. I think it's pretty good for what we got here. So yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know. And plus, I love Andy Samberg. I love John Mulaney. Both of them are just hilarious. And just knowing that they're behind this and they probably ad-libbed a lot of this and probably just had fun with it was probably added a lot to that too.
Yeah, definitely solid. solid choice in our lineup and a pretty successful month so far.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of that, hopefully that is going to continue. We had a three-way tie in our Facebook group for our suggestions, but the two that were mentioned first would have actually won, but unfortunately, they were not streaming on anything, so we had to go with the third choice, which is Wonder Woman, and that is on HBO Max. So if you wanna watch that with us, and I believe there is, like, 2 Wonder Woman movies. There's the Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman 1984,
That sounds right.
but we'll go with the Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
The first one, the one that was created in 2017? Yeah. So we're going with Wonder Woman 2017. It's on HBO Max. If you wanna watch that with us, we really appreciate it. We really hope that you do and, join us in some discussions with it. So yeah, Jeff, who is your dude or dud of the week this week?
Let's see. Going back and forth on a few choices here, but I'm going to go with Seth Rogen.
As a dude or a dud?
I'm going with Dude.
Okay.
Just the warrior Viking. Just like I said, that was one of my favorite parts in the movie. Was especially the scene where it's all four of his characters, and he's voicing all of them.
Yeah.
So that was the one scene that really stuck out to me. I just thought was really cool.
I thought it
So
was really funny, like the introduction of his character when they're like, "Oh, he's got the Polar Express eyes." He's like,
yeah,
I'm clearly looking at you." That was really funny too. Um,
yeah. So yeah, that's gonna be my dude of the week.
I'm actually gonna go with a dud. I'm gonna
Yeah,
go with
it was time
yeah,
for a dud.
it
So
was
yeah,
time for a dud, and I'm actually gonna go with the Peter Pan character. Um, just because I do think that Disney could have picked literally plenty of other people, knowing the history of Bobby Driscoll. I mean, I'm not as easily offended by it. But there was I do think they could have been a little bit more sensitive to that. But I'm also a big fan of like dark humor too. So I'm not really like super offended by that personally. So I'm not gonna try to jump on the high horse and be like this movie is like condemn it by that at all. But uh
although knowing what we know now, I would have absolutely loved to have seen the adult version of Charlie Brown in that
oh, for
role.
sure. I thought that would they could have done some great things with Charlie Brown for sure. But I did enjoy that, and
Hey,
I knew the history behind Bobby Driscoll and Peter Pan and all of that going into it. So I was kind of like shocked, and I was like, that was kind of like a shock humor for me, knowing that the first time I saw it. So I was kind of like thought that that was just part of it, which intentionally, like I kind of respect them more intentionally for doing it. Um, but I mean, but at the same time, like it's a family film too, so it's kind of like one of those things where it's like that's kind of like a deep dark humor cut for a family film. But at the same time, like, uh, that's the only real dud I'm gonna give it because I do. I mean, personally, like me, I thought it was funny, but I can also understand someone finding it insensitive.
yeah,
Uh, but
makes me
yeah.
wonder now if that's why he got a Snoopy ear because
Oh, as a reference.
they had plans for Charlie Brown to serve in one of that roles.
Oh yeah, probably, man. You never know.
So,
And they did have a lot of like characters from like all across like everything. So it's kind of crazy how they did that. I'm really curious. This is kind of one like look into like if they actually got rights to that or if it was like they just did just enough to where it was like considered like a parody or something like that, you know?
Mm.
Be interesting to look up. All right. So, Jeff, you got an off the wall question and
I actually do not have one this week,
okay.
unfortunately.
All right. Well, that's pretty boring. I'll ask you, do you have any New Year's resolutions this year?
I'm not a big New Year's resolutions person,
Hmm.
um, but I am like most people. You kind of New Year rolls around, you kind of think, what are some goals that I have, and it's going to be so cliche, but I definitely want to lose some weight, get in better shape. Um, anybody that listens knows that become a grandpa in the last 6 months, and my wife and I have always said, we don't want to be the grandparents that just watch our grandchild.
Yeah.
We want to be extremely active with our grandchild. So I definitely don't want to get myself to where I'm just gradually getting worse in the fitness department and feel like that's all I can do is sit around and watch, my
Hmm.
grandson. So, I'm definitely hoping to drop some needed weight, get in some better shape, um, and of course, every year, I always look forward to wanting to travel, see new things, experience new stuff. So hopefully, we'll be fortunate enough to continue to be able to do that. But how about you?
I'm declaring war on all of my enemies and showing no mercy. I'm trying to gain weight, trying to eat more food, and I'm also trying to travel this year. So that's about the only thing we have in common there.
Maybe we should make a pact on the whole weight thing then.
Yeah, you could just give me
Uh,
some.
exactly. I mean, win-win. Be a
uh,
win-win. We just
uh,
need to agree on what that amount should be. Because
right.
you may not want as much as I'm wanting to lose.
Hey, wait, I can shape it up.
Okay.
I'm getting back in the gym.
Okay.
Um,
Good deal.
do you have anything else before we get out of here tonight?
I don't think so. It's been a good solid month. Probably one of the better ones we've had in a while as far as just the quality and what we're ranking these movies. Um, gosh, I'm trying to think. That was our third one, right?
Yeah, that's our third one so far.
So it was Rescue Rangers, Matilda, and the Jungle Book. So yeah,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
yeah, and
And then we'll have Wonder Woman next week, which I haven't actually seen this one, so I don't think you have either, right?
actually I have not. It's always been one of those that when it came out, and like I said, there's been another one since then, but it was definitely one I was always wanting to check out.
Yeah, honestly, like I'll be completely honest, like I do enjoy a lot of the comic book films, but this one kind of hit at the point where it was just getting so oversaturated that it was getting hard for me to keep up. So yeah, I just missed this one too. A lot of the comic book films over the past like decade, I would say, have really fallen through the cracks for me. But um, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. I always enjoy those films. I'm definitely not diehard like most people are, especially
mhm,
a lot of guys. And I guess with the whole MCU thing, I don't watch a lot of movies anyway, but I felt like if you missed a couple of years,
yeah,
I felt like when the new ones come out, I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to. I'm going back to try to catch up. And I know a lot
especially
of
when
people. I know a lot
they're
of
like
people will
2.5
say,
hours long each.
yeah, and a lot of people will say, oh, that one stands on its own. But it may. But I feel like there's always references.
Hmm. They're always
And
better when you've seen
yeah,
them.
so yeah, the MCU stuff I gave up on just because it would take me forever to get caught up. At least with Wonder Woman, it's not part of the MCU, so I feel like there's nothing I need to go back and watch to really prep myself for this one.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I
Well,
mean,
well, we are watching these as standalones for so you know we can also judge it as that. So very much so. So I also will not have any knowledge very much. Well, I don't say any knowledge because I have seen some DC, but for the most part, yeah, I haven't. DC might be my biggest, my biggest, because I don't think I've seen any of the new Superman or definitely. I'm definitely a Batman dude. So I will watch pretty much any Batman movie that comes out, but not a big Superman guy. Uh, I caught the Aquaman movie, but that's pretty much the only other one outside of those. They're not part of like the Batman universe or the
Yeah,
Aquaman. I don't think I've seen anything of the DCs, um, but yeah, I'm kind of with you on the Marvels. There's definitely like a few franchises that I do keep up with, like inside the universe, but yeah, for the most part, yeah, I don't, even as much as I love film, like I love other types of film too. So I can't just devote all of my time to live in the Marvel universe as much as I do enjoy it. I enjoy other
probably.
things as well. So
Yeah, I think Thor is probably the closest one that we're the closest to being up to speed on.
mhm,
We hadn't seen the most recent one,
yeah,
but and of course that's my wife's got a big crush on Chris Hemsworth. That's the main reason we're
who
up to
doesn't?
speed. Exactly. He's like the complete package, real life too. But but yeah, like the Avengers and then all the other characters I'm so far behind on, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
All right. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for doing this with me every week. I really appreciate it. And thank you guys for listening with us. And we hope you check us out next week for Wonder Woman. Uh, yeah. And if you are curious about us, our socials are in the show notes, including our Patreon. So if you want to help support us, those are good ways. Also, you can help us out by subscribing. You can rate us, review us, just give us 5 stars. You don't even really have to technically review us. You can just like say some gobbledygook in the comments. It really doesn't matter. Either way, it just helps us boost up the charts and help us get more listeners, and so does word of mouth. So if you know somebody that listens to podcasts, spreading the word of mouth always helps us out, and these two dudes really appreciate that. Yeah, thanks again, and remember, sometimes it's okay to get CG'd. Peace out. Bye. I don't even know what that one was. Bye.